So Iman Gadzhi has gained over 100 million views in the last 30 days, and he even at one point gained over 346,000 subscribers in under a month. And it's not because of luck. It's because Iman has carefully curated the perfect strategy to completely blow up his personal brand. And it resulted in him making over $20 million just off of one YouTube video and well over $100 million with his brand. You see, this is a secret strategy that's used by all the top influencers that you look up to that brings them millions of dollars. And not using this strategy is going to be the reason why you can't grow a personal brand and actually make any money. But the craziest thing is, it's actually surprisingly simple to implement. And once you learn it, it's going to cause you to see results like this, and this. So grab a pen and paper, because over the course of this video, I'm going to be sharing with you this information completely for free. So that way you can actually grow your personal brand and actually live the lifestyle that you see from your favorite influencers. Now, if you want to blow up your personal brand and get as much views as possible, you're going to need to go a bit more broad with your overall content before you can niche back down, which is exactly what Iman and his team understood. Which is why the first thing that Iman did was that he went more broad and general with his content to gain a larger target audience. Now, he started to create more generalized business content, whereas previously he was more niche down into SMMA, which he realized was kind of holding him back in terms of his overall growth potential. So instead of making videos like why SMMA is the best business to start in 2020 or 3 things I wish I knew when starting SMMA, he took the more broad approach and started making videos like how to take back control of your life, monk mode, or do this to make $10,000 as a student. Now, what content like this did was reach a much larger, much broader audience that garnered a lot more views and attention onto his channel, thus increasing his overall reach. Now, a big mistake that you want to avoid that 99% of beginner YouTubers make is that they actually go too broad with their channel and they end up making a bunch of different videos that are in completely different niches, which overall is going to hurt your channel because the YouTube algorithm isn't going to know who to promote your videos to, because you're making a bunch of different videos from a bunch of different niches. Now, a big part of the genius with Iman's strategy is that he still kept all his videos in the same overall niche. So he went from making SMMA content to content that falls more under how to make money online, which is a much broader niche that has a much greater overall reach. Now, the second thing that he did was that he focused on a specific viewer avatar. Now, what I mean by this is that when creating content, he focused on what is the ideal specific viewer of your content, or what is known as a viewer avatar. Now, he did this by focusing on the different pain points and desires of his viewer avatar and started creating content based around that, which is why around this time you see him getting a lot more flashy, showing off his multi-millionaire lifestyle. It's why you started seeing him vlogging, buying designer clothes, buying all these different supercars, and started vlogging him, traveling first class or traveling on private jets. And these are things that every single young aspiring entrepreneur dreams of. You see, what Iman specifically did was that he started to sell his lifestyle to his viewers, and this helped him blow up massively because, one, he showed that he actually knew what he was talking about when it comes down to making money and business, and 2, he kept people invested in him as a person, and it helped him build a cult-like following simply because it fed into our natural desires for materialism. Now, the third aspect to this phase is that Iman drastically increased the visual quality and presentation of his videos. Now, like I said previously, he actually hired a full-time team to help improve his editing and his cinematography, which drastically increased his viewer retention and his overall watch time. Now, data like this is crucial because it's what YouTube's algorithm actually uses to determine whether or not your videos are good enough to recommend to new viewers, because their overall goal as a platform is to keep you on their platform as long as possible. Now, if you go back on Iman's channel, you can actually see the difference between his older and newer videos in terms of the quality and the overall effort that's put into it. Everything from the overall lighting to the camera angles to the audio quality to even the thumbnails and the titles drastically saw an increase in quality, and thus the overall amount of views each video got. Now, this played a massive role into why Iman's brand completely took off. Now, a very cliched thing that you hear is that gear doesn't matter and that you should only focus on being consistent. Now, whilst this might be partially true, the full truth is that if you're not improving your videos each time that you upload, then you're never going to go to your full potential simply because people are used to a certain quality. And if you're unable to match that or at least come close, then you're gonna get left behind. Now, with that being said, there's another aspect to Iman's strategy that actually helped him get to the point where he's gaining hundreds of millions of views each month. And it looks something like this. So the second phase to Iman's strategy is that he started to go on many different podcasts to capitalize off of other people's audiences. So if you were to go on somewhere like YouTube and type in, I don't know, Iman Gadzhi podcast, you would see that he went on many different podcasts. Like here are some CEO casts, Hamza's podcast, the Fatherless podcast, Nude Project, Nonchalant podcast, First Things Thirst. So basically what I'm saying that he went on many different podcasts because he knows that, he can capitalize off the viewership of all those other big, platforms and podcasts to get his name out there, get his story out there, and just overall expose his brand, millions of new viewers that could be interested in his own brand. And if you go on a lot of these different podcasts, you can see that the one they did with Iman a lot of the times are actually the most viewed, most watched videos. And basically what he did when he went on all these different podcasts was that he started to sell his story. So, we all have a different, rags to riches story. How we all are just obsessed with the idea of someone starting from nothing and then just becoming one of the greatest in whatever industries is that they're in. So essentially he sold his story of, being born with an abusive household, single mother, grew up without his father, born in Russia, raised in one of the poorest parts in the UK, and how he essentially dropped out of high school at 14 to pursue, digital entrepreneurship. And after a couple failed years, he eventually found his way and then started making millions to now where, he's 25 with a net worth of over $100 million, making millions of dollars per month. And the reason why people are so obsessed with stories like these are because, most people are close to, if not at the stage where Iman started, and they like to think that they themselves can achieve what Iman did. If they can see that you started from their position or even worse to becoming something that they can only dream of, people can like to fantasize and visualize themselves doing that, and they like to visualize themselves in you, thinking that, if you can do it, why can't they? And it's just overall a story that most people tend to get hooked on, which is why a lot of people actually lie about their story, saying that they came from way worse of a background than they actually did, to overall sell themselves more to whichever audience or person that they're speaking to. Now, if you want to get invited onto different podcasts for your own brand, then you need to follow this key aspect into Iman's strategy. You see, Iman isn't dumb. He understands that for him to get invited onto so many different podcasts, he needs to find a way to make it beneficial for the host to have him on. For example, one of his first podcasts that he did with Hamza, he flew him out on a first-class flight to Dubai, where he had him stay for a couple of days in one of the most luxurious hotels and basically gave him an experience that he can't forget. And as a result of that, Hamza made countless videos about Iman, which exposed his brand to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of new eyes. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be flying people out left or right and just doing the most extravagant things and spending the most amount of money, but just think about how you can make having yourself on a podcast or interview beneficial for the host. Now, with that being said, let's get into the third phase of Iman's strategy. The third phase of Iman's strategy is that he actually focused on short form content distribution. So for this phase, Iman essentially went on another hiring spree, hiring a full-time team of some of the best short form content editors to essentially take his content distribution to the next level. You see, what Iman and his team did was basically take advantage of a new era of content consumption, which is basically known as short form content. Now, you see, the advantage with short form content is that, yes, although it might not be the best for connection with an audience, it's essentially the best tactic when it comes down to just getting as much views as possible and just growing as fast as possible for any type of brand. Because even look at platforms like TikTok. Most people, when they go on TikTok, they don't even search for a video. They go on their home feed and they essentially scroll while the algorithm feeds them videos based off of their recent activity. Same thing with Instagram Reels now. With YouTube, most people search what they're looking for, but they still sometimes fall into the rabbit hole of just doom scrolling and the algorithm just feeding videos based off of what that person likes to watch. Now, you once stated in a video that his team is actually running about 30 different accounts across various different platforms. That's actually bringing him well over 300 million views per month. The reason why they aim to get such staggering amounts of views because they pump out tens, if not hundreds of videos per day across all his platforms. And essentially the key to this is, like I said, just pumping out as much videos as possible. A 30-second to 1 minute video isn't going to necessarily make somebody want to buy from you. What it does is that it exposes your brand to as much people as possible, because nowadays people are probably consuming short form content way more than they're doing long form. So that's why you see companies like Google with YouTube or Meta with Instagram, Facebook investing so much money into short form content. So as you can imagine, this was also another very important step into blowing up his brand, because it literally gained him a couple extra 100 million views per month. So now you understand the exact strategy used by one of the biggest influencers to completely blow up his personal brand and make well over $100 million in his 20s. But it's also just as important that you understand certain key principles to business, so that when you start selling any sort of product or service, that you're able to operate it effectively. Which is why I made a specific video about it that you can watch here if you want to know what it is and why it's so important.